it is interesting because like we've had back and forths about whether or not you'd want to be the coach that's the best at the transfer portal. But I do feel like every single time a really good player leaves, Florida State always finds a way to be involved.
Yeah.
And Florida State being involved is routinely has made their roster much, much better. And it's like, I don't know. Can you be a coach in the transfer portal, Andy, that isn't reliant on it, but is also the chief beneficiary of luxury pieces? So like, can you find a spot between those two things, or do you have to expose yourself to the reliance of it?
Yeah.
And then hope to be good at it? Or can you just be like, we're going to save 7 to 10 roster spots at the end of every year. We don't have any glaring needs. We like our roster. And if you're really good, we'll take you.
I think that's what USC can be under Lincoln Riley.
Right. Yeah.
Because they can theoretically get really good high school players and then plug. Now, the Florida State thing's interesting. And, oh, by the way, shameless plug and tease, within the next week or so, you're going to hear an interview with Mike Norvell on this show. And we haven't recorded it yet, but one of the things I want to ask him is how does he approach that? Because the one thing I've noticed about them as they've gotten better, the quality of the players out of high school that is considering them seems to be rising as well. And are they using that to get to where they want to be from a high school recruiting standpoint?
Well, that has to be the goal at the beginning, right?
I think
maybe
so.
It doesn't, but like I always thought that was the goal. Raise your profile in the short term with the established players you get through the portal in order to make the high school players like you more. But yeah, and like that's the thing that's most interesting to me about the Deion situation too. And I know it's Colorado, but it's just so interesting. It's like Deion Sanders walks in and everybody loves the Louis comment, right? I'm bringing my luggage, but like there are probably a large portion of people out there who have left Colorado or are around Colorado who think he's an asshole now.
Absolutely.
And you can't rule it this way without that being the case. And my question is, and you said this was, well, once he gets the players into the program, he can say, those weren't my guys, you're my guy. But at a certain point, as Deion Sanders
win, that's fine. Yeah. That'll work.
But can Deion Sanders, once he does this roster flip and brings his guys in, continue to run his program with an iron hammer the way he's doing it right now? And if so, and he does that, is Colorado going to be one of the places that fails at keeping your players happy, which then in turn turns you into the turnstile on the opposite direction.
Yes.
So like, it's like, oh, be the cool place to come. I'm Deion, primetime. We're on YouTube, all the cool things but like, are people going to stay there?
The only thing that keeps you cool is winning consistently.
Yeah.
That is the only thing. So now with Colorado, I think we do have to manage our expectations here. What do we think is good? I think 4 or 5 wins is a dramatic improvement for them. And I think
if they win 4 games and they have a dramatic improvement, what's the following year going to look like?
Right. And I think you can probably sell what you're going to sell. The problem is if you go 1-11 again, or you go 2-10 and Oregon State crushes you to make a point, and Oregon crushes you to make a point, and Arizona State crushes you to make a point, then you're going to have a hard time selling that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe Deion gets another year, more so than a normal person would because of his atmosphere. But, I think that being the cool place to go in the portal means that you get to play for a guy like Norvell or a guy like Beamer, somebody who you want to play for and be around, who is a believer in the direction of their program and have sights on being there for a long time. Like those are important things. And when there's a culture, like everybody always says, like, I hate the portal. You can't build a culture that way. But it's like, can you build a team that has a positive culture, but also is transient?
Right. And I think Florida State's situation is not necessarily, you didn't build a culture through the portal for sure. The culture is built through the Jordan Travises. Now, it's weird because Jordan Travis is a transfer, but he transferred to Florida State so long ago that he has helped build the culture that's there. Most of their offensive linemen, not transfers. Most of them are guys they got out of high school. They got some D linemen for the most part. Now, some of their bigger stars have been transfers, but most of them are guys they got out of high school. So I think that's the thing is you still want to have most of your players there. And I think and I'll be interested to hear what Norvell says about this. Is his goal eventually something like Georgia, where almost everybody's somebody you got out of high school and you're just plugging occasional gaps with the portal?
Yeah. But also, too, it's just like, would you like to be the best program in college football? I think the answer to that question is probably obvious.
They all want
the real question probably should be, what's the realistic destination? Like, and I know you don't want to insult somebody and say, hey, you can't get to that point, because I'm sure in his head he probably does. Yeah. But like, is there a medium of what's the percentage of high school versus portal that's your sweet spot? Is it 90-10, 80-20? Because what is Florida State now? 60-40, 70-30?
I think they're probably 65-35.
Okay, good estimation by me.
The roster, but that sounds about right. Especially if you go with the players that start.
Because I'd love to hear if he might be 90-10. Because even 90-10 is more than Georgia.
Right. Yeah, because Georgia didn't really take anybody last year.
Yeah,
they took Dominic Lovett and Robert Thomas this year. They took a couple guys the year before last, but yeah, I think it depends on each program and each program's needs. I mean, Florida State was in a pretty bad spot. And I think if the rules had been different when they got there, they would have flipped that roster a lot faster. They didn't really have a choice. So I think that's the difference. I think if Norvell gets that job in 2022 or 2023 instead of 2020, perhaps all of this changes faster.